All right, now we get to the testy part of the competition, and we know the path for all of the teams to make the final. What's up, guys? How's your summer been? Do you miss league football yet, or are you happy to have some time to chill? I'm still waiting on the baby. I'm still here making videos, so obviously the new Rabona TV signing has not yet arrived, but thankfully I have this tournament to pass the time until he arrives, and I have you guys to discuss it with. So I appreciate you guys hanging around. I also have a wedding this weekend, so I will miss one of the games, but I'll take a cheeky glance at the phone now and then. And hey, if you're on the go, if you're trying to follow the tournament from a wedding like I will be this Sunday, then our sponsors for this video, OneFootball, offer the best coverage that you can find. Go ahead, scan the QR code on screen while I tell you all about it. Because once you're signed up and have selected the players, teams, and competitions that you're interested in, that you want to follow, like the Club World Cup, then your feed will be custom tailored to your interests, and you'll get regular, up-to-the-minute news sent straight to your phone. You won't miss a thing. And yes, OneFootball has in-depth coverage of Latin American teams as well. So fans of Mexican, Argentine, or Brazilian teams, you know, the ones represented at this tournament, you're covered here. It's not all about Europe. It's about the world of football. And I want to see a team from this side of the Atlantic go deep, man. And so you want to know the path to the final for any team in the Club World Cup. Just tap on the Club World Cup overview at the top of the app, then knockout, and boom. The landscape of the knockout rounds are there to see. All this plus the usual features of OneFootball, where you can find interviews, highlights, fantastic articles, live scores, and more. So scan the QR code or use the link in the description to download the OneFootball app, and you're on your way. Thanks, OneFootball. In this tournament in particular, Chelsea was able to get through the group with wins over LAFC and Esperance de Tunis, but lost 3-1 to Flamengo despite leading 1-0 at the half. Nico Jackson losing his head and getting himself suspended. He won't be available for this match, but they were already 2-1 down by the time he got sent off. Against Esperance, they rotated their squad and still managed to win as expected given the golf in resources, the golf in quality of players. For Benfica, they took part in one of the more entertaining matches of the early tournament with a 2-2 draw with Boca, then beat Auckland 6-0. Shout out Auckland for getting that draw with Boca, by the way. And then Benfica, who had a few changes to their lineup, defeated Bayern, who had wholesale changes to their starting lineup. Big shout out to Trubin as well, who stood on his head at times against Bayern, especially against Leroy Sané. Ultimately, I think people see Benfica as the underdogs, and that's probably the right call, as we've been pretty damn inconsistent this season. And with the players that Maresca has at his disposal, coming up against a Bruno Lage, who is causing more frustration these days than he is reasons to feel optimistic, I feel like the odds are against us. Delap scored his first goal, granted the keeper should be saving it, he just couldn't be bothered, but it's good for the mental of Delap, you know? Palmer will be out there again, though he didn't shine that often in the tournament thus far, but Pedro Neto is the one that I am worried about the most. If he's deployed on the left coming up against Dal or Orsnes at right back, that could be an issue. That said, for Benfica, Florentino will probably be back, which is a huge boost if he is in there because he's a killer in the midfield, and Carreras will be back, which is massive for both the defense and chance generation down that left side of Benfica. I don't think there will be a ton of goals in this game, and Chelsea will probably come out on top. With Benfica, again, similarly to Chelsea, there's always a chance of surprise because we're so all over the place with our performances, and Lage does tend to get the team up for these kinds of matches. We defeated Bayern for the first time in our history. I have this weird feeling about us, but let's just see. An all-Brazilian round of 16 matchup, which is kind of a shame, isn't it? It's nice when we have teams from around the world facing off. Even with the all UEFA fixture we just saw was a bit of a letdown, but that's what happens when there are just 50% of the teams remaining, right? Less variety. Now, let's start with Palmeiras, who are yet to lose a match at this tournament. Palmeiras are typically pretty miserly with their defense, as Abel Ferreira will be all too happy to set up a defensive block and try to play some classic Portuguese manager tournament ball. Scoring goals hasn't come too easily to them this tournament, and while Estevão brings more than just finishing, it's that area of his game that has been letting him down in this tournament. He had a few gilt-edged chances in Palmeiras' first two matches against Al Ahly and FC Porto that he failed to convert. He's failed to get an assist as well, despite being a handful for the fullbacks. It feels like it's a matter of time before he really arrives at this tournament, if you know what I mean, but it has to be now. At the back, Murillo has been confirmed as out for the match against Botafogo, probably for the entirety of the tournament, so Naves could start. One thing I really didn't like about Palmeiras' play against Inter Miami was how high of a line they played. I don't expect them to do the same against Botafogo, but if they do, Igor Jesus is going to, treat that space in behind them like his own personal playground. He's been the bright spot for Botafogo's attack in this tournament, as he scored in their first 2 matches, and if not for Jan Oblak, he would have had one against Atletico as well. He hadn't exactly been hot back in Brazil, with just 7 goals and 25 appearances across all competitions, but his play this tournament has caught the eye. For me, with how Estevão improved against Inter Miami, I think he's going to want to make a statement in the knockout rounds here, and given there is a big question mark over who will play at the right back for Botafogo after Vitinho went off injured against Atleti, that will be a great area for Palmeiras to exploit. I think Estevão will take advantage of that, plus I believe that Ferreira has proven himself as far as how he sets up his sides in knockout matches. I was initially a bit worried about Palmeiras' defense and how they played against Inter Miami, but I don't expect them to play that high of the line. So I'll go with Palmeiras to get through this one. The champions of Europe versus Messi and the boys. Absolutely not a team that I expected to get through to the round of 16, but my word, did they ever take good advantage of how bad FC Porto were? And they nearly found themselves on the other side of the bracket if they could have held on to their 2-0 lead against Palmeiras. One of the things that has impressed me the most with this Inter Miami side is how they have defended. Bar that first half against Al Ahly where they were completely open at the back, and the first half against Porto where they looked a bit squirrely, they have improved tenfold when it comes to their defending. Like I said in a recap previously, you would even see Suarez dropping a little bit deeper to help out there. Messi stepping in now and then. In fact, speaking of Suarez dropping deeper, he did that well to set up Allende's goal against Palmeiras, then later scored one himself. With Messi playing balls in behind, disguised passes, and in general just messy things, there's always a pretty good chance of a goal or two for Inter Miami. Another benefit is that Jordi Alba is on his way back. We saw him play the end of the Palmeiras match. But for all of the good that they have in the attack, they shouldn't be in the same conversation as PSG, who are playing more great football under Luis Enrique, who knows Suarez, Alba, and Messi very well, or at least he did when they were closer to their primes, right? His PSG side played differently than his Barcelona side did, as they still control the ball and counter-press well, but they play a higher tempo and look to counter before a team even realizes what has hit them. PSG seem like they haven't even hit their top gear in the tournament so far, and that's not to take anything away from Botafogo's victory over them, because Botafogo's, they defended absolutely resolutely, but PSG coming up against this Inter Miami side, I don't think I will have to do too much convincing to you that they're the favorites, right? Yes, we may see some messy magic out there, but expect PSG to manipulate this Inter Miami back line, pull them out of position, third man runs go completely unchecked, etc. So PSG through, in my opinion. There have been some questions asked of Vincent Kompany's decision to rotate his side so much against Benfica, 7 changes from their win over Boca. By the time he brought on the starters, it was too little too late against Benfica. Maybe they could have gone in another direction if they had started, but Trubin had other ideas, and now they have a much tougher bracket. But anyway, they have been very, very strong in this tournament. Auckland beat down aside because they managed to beat Boca thanks to a clean finish from Michael Olise. And Olise is the man that will be a big, big problem for Flamengo, as he'll be up against the likes of Lucas or Alexandro if he's to start. And he's just been looking like maybe Bayern's best attacker. Speaking of decisions on the lineup, Felipe Luis has impressed at this tournament as he did coming into it, as he climbed the ladder very, very quickly at Flamengo. He's already won a few titles with them since taking over the senior team in 2024. He won the Intercontinental Cup, by the way, with Flamengo's U20 side. He's a legit coach here, folks, and he could mastermind a big result. Of the Brazilian teams left in this competition, I would say that Flamengo looked like the strongest. You saw how he turned things around in the second half against Chelsea, the changes he made in Bruno Henrique, turning the tides, etc. Flamengo has a strong squad across the park, really. Jorginho in the midfield. But Bayern Munich, on the other hand, have one of the best squads in the entire tournament. And a few of their stars got some rest in the previous match. Also, Jamal Musiala could finally get a chance to start for Bayern at this tournament, as he is being reintegrated after he was injured in April and May. Bayern's defense is not perfect at all. That's where I think Flamengo could find some joy in this match, as they certainly have talented enough attackers. But my worry for them is keeping Bayern's own attackers at bay, and how Felipe Luis will look to dissect that back line. Stanisic doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence, nor do Bayern's fullbacks. I still see Bayern as getting through this match, but I think it will be just a 1-goal swing. And hey, as always, I am rooting for the underdog, for Flamengo in this one. We need these Brazilian supporters in the competition still. Monterrey, another CONCACAF team that managed to survive. The only other one, in fact, as Pachuca and the MLS teams didn't make it through. And of course, Borussia Dortmund, who have deja vu at the moment when it comes to Job Bellingham. Goal against Mamelodi Sundowns and an assist against Ulsan. That's quite the decent start for Jude's little brother. Borussia Dortmund's tournament has been hard to get a clear read on, in my opinion. They start with a 0-0 draw, which is fine. Then they beat Sundowns 4-3 thanks to an own goal and an insane mistake by Ronwin Williams in the Sundowns goal. Anton had a mistake here and there himself, if we're being fair. And then they defeat Ulsan 1-0. Definitely should have scored more goals in that one. It was a shooting gallery. 20 attempts in the first half. But that's how their season kind of went, right? A mix of good and bad. But a very strong finish under Niko Kovac. That's the thing, is that they have so many weapons in the attack, guys who can be weapons in the attack, like Girassi, Adeyemi, and Brandt, but they can similarly go ice cold as well. The defense, definitely missing someone like Schlotterbeck out there, but at least they have Kobel backing them up. He's been fantastic. Monterrey were the surprise of Group E, as I think most people expected Inter and River to get through, but the Argentine clubs didn't show up to this tournament, really. Really disappointing from them, but their failures, or the failure, I guess, in River's case, was Monterrey's joy, as they played their game extremely well. They had a hard-fought draw against Inter, then they had another difficult draw up against River Plate, where they were outshot 18-3, only to smack up Urawa 4-0 by putting on a bangers-only gallery. Tecatito Corona, what a goal! So yes, Monterrey have drawn their strength from their defense, with Sergio Ramos being the leader back there, both in experience and performance. At least in 2 of the 3 matches. He was a bit iffy against River Plate, in my opinion, giving the ball up, making mistakes, that kind of thing. But Herman Berterame provides quite the threat in the attack as well. He finally arrived with 2 goals in the match against Urawa, but back in Liga MX, he is a constant marksman. So, can they cause an upset against Borussia Dortmund? You know, you wouldn't be surprised if they did, as Borussia Dortmund have been far from their best at this tournament, while Monterrey have conceded just 1 goal in 3 matches. Borussia Dortmund is the most likely winner, right? But where I thought Pachuca would be the CONCACAF team to make a deep run, I was wrong. And it's Monterrey, maybe? I'll go for them, as I think they are trending, even though my head tells me it's Dortmund. Gotta have a fun pick in there, right? Okay, Inter versus Fluminense. Inter started the tournament fairly slowly, but put together 2 good results under new coach Christian Kivu. Also, speaking of slow starts, that River vs Inter match, the first half, 1 shot on target. They started slow against Urawa Reds as well, though. Thankfully, though, it improved in the second half, and throughout that match, Lautaro was looking dangerous against River. He's actually looked quite good out there in this tournament in general, despite having to play with a different Esposito in each match. But I think Francesco Pio Esposito has nailed down his starting place next to Lautaro with his 1 goal and 1 assist. He finished the season well with Spezia prior to this tournament also. And Kivu, having been the man to coach him at the youth levels, I mean, he knows these boys well. But man, maybe Bastoni should play as striker. That goal he scored against River was nasty. But anyway, Inter's attack will have to be up to task against a Fluminense side that has 2 clean sheets in this tournament already, but also struggled for goals in 2 of their 3 matches. Mind you, they were blanked against Borussia Dortmund thanks to Kobel's heroics in the first half, but they won't have an easier time with Jan Sommer, the other Swiss goalkeeper. I think this is where Fluminense will struggle the most, goals. Their defending will be good, as it was against a good attacking team like Mamelodi Sundowns, and they defended really well against Dortmund as well, but the attack could struggle to break Inter down. Me personally, I think Lautaro is going to have a breakout match, as he's been bubbling but hasn't boiled yet, and I think he'll do that against a Brazilian side. I think he'll really blow up. So yes, me personally, I see Inter getting past Fluminense, but it's going to be tough for them, as seemingly most matches have been, although the second half of River Plate, they were convincing. Juve started this tournament really well, as we would have expected when they were playing up against Al Ain and Wydad in their first 2 matches. Then they had their big test against Manchester City, and yes, they rotated a couple of players, but they still were just so soundly defeated by Manchester City that it didn't fill you with a lot of confidence for them, knowing they would likely be playing against Real Madrid in the round of 16. Prior to that, things were looking good for Juve, as Kenan Yildiz was looking like a player who was really arriving to his full potential now. I still think that he'll be an unbelievable player, obviously, but I mean, it seemed like he was going to be able to drag Juve through this tournament, like he was in that kind of form, right? But the stark reality hit against Manchester City, and we saw some flashes of what had hampered Juve all season long. And the biggest issue of all, their defense. What on earth is Lloyd Kelly doing in a Juve shirt? You know, Kalulu was disastrous, you know, he made that huge mistake, but I usually don't mind him. But the options at the back for Igor Tudor are not looking good. That said, as we alluded to, their attack looks pretty good. It's just that defense that's a huge worry. Real Madrid, on the other hand, I like what I'm seeing game by game. The first match against Al Hilal was, I mean, it looked no different from the tail end of the Ancelotti era, and how could it, you know? Xabi just got there. But against Pachuca, they improved a bit in the attack. Against Salzburg, they improved in both attack and defense, in my opinion. With the Salzburg match, you had a Real Madrid that had improved in the midfield. In the middle area of the pitch, they had more control, and they looked like they had an idea of what they wanted to do in the attack and how they could play that long ball to Vinny. He wasn't just static. He was making runs earlier, and with the distribution of Trent, with the distribution of Jude, with Hausen stepping into the midfield and his distribution, they look potent in the attack once again. They rolled out a back three against Salzburg, and for all intents and purposes, it looked both solid and good in the attack. Plus, in Mbappe's absence, Gonzalo Gracia is scoring goals and contributing regularly, so it's hard for me to see past Real Madrid in this matchup. Also, Mbappe will be back for the round of 16, a little Kiki off the bench. Scary. I have Real going through. Yes, Juve's defense was bad, but I think the City rebuild is a scary one. They looked very, very good against Juve, and the addition of Rodri back into their midfield makes them look like an intimidating team once again. Reinders looks like a natural addition to their midfield. Aït-Nouri was very strong at left back. Manchester City is looking good, man. They smashed every team they played against. Well, Wydad had some strong moments against them, but City ultimately scored 8 goals in their first 2 matches without conceding, then won their third 5-2 against Juve. That is a very dark omen for their opponents, Al Hilal. Al Hilal looked like they were going to smash it in the group stage after looking so good against Real Madrid in their opening match of the tournament. Decent defensively, and with tricky attackers like Malcolm, Marcos Leonardo, and Eldasari, I thought they were going to look much, much better in the group. After that Real Madrid draw, they followed it up with a blank 0-0 with Salzburg. Then in their final do-or-die match, they just beat out Pachuca. Now, I know it says 2-0, but that last goal was at the very end in garbage time when Pachuca were half asleep because they had only been thinking of goals in that second half, outshooting Al Hilal 10-3, and they had some really good chances that they should have equalized from. I think that Guardiola's side will be able to pick this Al Hilal backline apart, just as Pachuca were doing. And with Haaland starting, Savinho had a stunning match against Juve down the right. You see that hit he had? Whew. I really like this lineup. And you swap out Marmoush for Haaland in the 11, and you have a terrifying team that has a chance at beating everyone in this tournament. So, City to advance. All right, guys, those are my picks, but I, of course, want to hear what you think will happen here. And I will see you, well, I'm not really sure just yet because of the wedding, but I'll see you in the not so distant future, a couple of days or so. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Take care.